The night was cold, and the forest was silent except for the sound of leaves moving in the wind. Ethan walked slowly with his dog Rex by his side. The flashlight in his hand cut through the darkness, showing trees that stood tall like shadows. It was supposed to be a quiet walk, just him and his dog. But something in the air felt different tonight. Rex suddenly stopped, his ears straight, his nose lifted to the wind. He gave a low growl, then barked loudly and ran ahead. Ethan frowned. Rex was a good dog, strong and smart. He never barked without reason. Ethan followed, his boots crunching against dry leaves. The deeper he went, the stranger the air became. It was thick, heavy, almost electric. Ethan could feel a chill crawl across his skin. Then he heard it, the faintest sound. A cry, soft and weak, not human, not animal, something in between. Ethan froze, his breath caught in his chest. Rex barked again, his voice sharp, pulling Ethan toward the sound. He raised his flashlight, scanning the bushes and fallen branches. At first, he saw nothing but shadows. Then the beam landed on something small, something glowing faintly under the moonlight. It was a girl, or at least she looked like one. She was small, fragile, with skin that shimmered like silver mixed with blue. Her clothes were torn, strange symbols printed across the fabric. Her body shook as she tried to move, but she was too weak. Ethan's heart pounded. He stepped closer, not sure if he was dreaming. The girl raised her head slowly. Her eyes glowed faintly, large and filled with fear. They didn't look like human eyes. They were brighter, deeper, as if tiny stars lived inside them. She tried to speak, her voice soft, broken. The words were strange, a language Ethan had never heard, but the tone was clear. She was begging, pleading. Ethan knelt down, his flashlight shaking in his hand. Rex stood close, his growl low but not hostile. The dog seemed to sense that the girl was no threat. Instead, he whined softly, tilting his head as if he too felt her pain. The girl reached out a trembling hand. Her fingers were long, delicate, glowing faintly at the tips. She touched Ethan's sleeve, gripping it weakly as though it was her only hope. Her lips moved again, this time forming words that sounded closer to English. She whispered, "Help, please," before her head dropped, her body collapsing. For a moment, Ethan just stared. His mind spun in circles. Was she real? Was this some kind of dream or illusion? No story, no legend, nothing in his life had prepared him for this. Yet the warmth of her touch still lingered on his sleeve, and the sound of her weak voice echoed in his mind. Rex whined again, nudging the girl with his nose. Ethan knew his dog. If Rex trusted someone, then Ethan should trust them too. He slid his arms under her light frame, lifting her carefully. She was lighter than expected, almost weightless. Her breathing was shallow, each breath sounding like a struggle. As he carried her, Ethan glanced around the forest. The night felt different now, as if unseen eyes were watching. The air hummed faintly, like distant engines in the sky. He looked up but saw only darkness and stars. Still, a voice deep inside whispered that they were not alone. The walk back to his cabin felt longer than usual. Every step echoed with questions. Who was she? Where had she come from? Why was she here? And why did he feel as if danger was already following? Rex stayed close, his eyes scanning the trees. Sometimes he growled softly, as if sensing movements that Ethan couldn't see. The dog's loyalty gave Ethan courage, but the tension in the air only grew stronger. Finally, the cabin appeared through the trees, small, old, but safe. Ethan pushed the door open with his shoulder. Carrying the girl inside, he laid her gently on the couch, her glowing skin faint in the dim light. Rex sat by her side, his body stiff, ready to protect. Ethan took a step back, running a hand through his hair. His heart raced. He had found something extraordinary, something impossible. And yet, here she was, fragile, dying, and completely real. He whispered to himself, "What have I gotten into?" The alien girl stirred slightly, her lips moving once more. This time, her whisper was clearer. The word was soft but sharp enough to freeze Ethan where he stood. Hunters. She breathed before falling silent again. Ethan stared at her, his blood turning cold. Hunters? Out there in the forest? Watching? Waiting? Rex growled again, low and steady, his ears tilted toward the dark woods outside. Ethan knew then that whatever the girl had warned him about it was already near. And so, the quiet night had ended, replaced by a discovery that would change his life forever. The room was quiet, only the sound of the fire crackling in the old cabin fireplace. Ethan knelt beside the couch, his eyes fixed on the strange girl who now lay weak and pale, her glowing skin dimmed with each shallow breath. Rex stayed close, his head resting near her hand, his ears flicking every time she exhaled. It was as if the dog understood that she was fighting for life. Ethan's hands trembled as he reached for a blanket. He gently covered her fragile body. Hoping warmth would help, he whispered to himself, "What am I supposed to do?" His voice cracked. He was just a simple man with a dog. Not a doctor, not a soldier, and certainly not someone ready to care for an alien girl. Yet here she was, depending on him. The girl's lips parted, her voice weak and broken. Strange sounds came first, like a song from another world. Then slowly, words in broken English slipped out. "No. Take back. Please." Her eyes fluttered open for a moment, glowing faintly like stars fading at dawn. Ethan leaned closer. Who is trying to take you?" She tried to answer, but the words dissolved into a fit of coughing. Her body shook, her breath shallow. Her hand moved weakly, searching for something. And Rex gently pressed his nose against her palm. She clutched onto him, tears running down her face. Ethan swallowed hard. He grabbed a bowl of water and a clean cloth. He dabbed her forehead, trying to cool her fever he had treated injured. Animals before, but this was no animal. She was someone's child, someone's hope. And now she was lying in his cabin, halfway between life and death. Her breathing grew heavier, and her lips turned pale. Ethan's chest tightened, panic rose. In him like a storm, he had seen death before. But this was different. If she died here, it wouldn't just be the end of her life. It would be the end of something greater, something he didn't yet understand. "Stay with me," he whispered, his voice desperate. "Don't give up, not yet." He held her hand, feeling how light and fragile it was. Her glowing fingers barely held his, like the last spark of a candle before it goes dark. Suddenly, she spoke again, her words clear but weak. "Hunters. They come. They want me dead." Ethan felt a chill cut through his bones. Her eyes met his, pleading. "Please. Protect." Then her voice faded, her body going limp. For a terrifying moment, Ethan thought she was gone. Her chest stopped moving, the faint glow of her skin almost gone. Rex barked loudly, nudging her face with his nose, whining in panic. Ethan pressed his ear close, then heard it, the faintest breath, shallow but still there. Relief washed over him, but fear followed quickly. She was close to death, closer than he wanted to admit. He searched the cabin frantically. What did he have that could help her? Old medicines, herbs, water, fire, nothing felt strong enough. But he refused to sit back and watch her die. He took a small flask, poured water carefully into her mouth, praying she could swallow. For a moment, nothing happened. Then she coughed, choking weakly, but she swallowed a drop. Ethan almost cried from relief. "That's it, just a little, you're still here," he whispered. Rex wagged his tail nervously, as if understanding the fragile victory. But outside, the night grew louder. Ethan froze. He could hear faint sounds in the distance, not natural, not the wind, but something mechanical. Heavy footsteps echoed faintly, far off but getting closer. Rex's ears shot up, his growl deep and steady. Ethan's heart pounded. Whoever these hunters were, they were near. He looked at the girl again, her chest rising and falling faintly. Her strength was gone, her life hanging by a thread, he knew. If he left her alone, she wouldn't last the night, but if he stayed, the hunters might come through his door. The girl stirred slightly, her glowing eyes opening just a crack. She whispered again, voice almost broken, "Don't let them take me." A single tear slid down her cheek. Her hand tightened around Ethan's fingers. Even in her weakness, Ethan sat frozen. His mind screamed at him to run, to hide, but something stronger rooted him in place. He couldn't leave her. He couldn't betray the trust in those star-like eyes. He clenched his jaw, his voice firm now. "I won't, I promise." The fire flickered. Shadows dancing across the cabin walls. Outside, the sound of engines hummed faintly in the night sky. The hunters were searching, closing in. Rex growled. Again, low and dangerous, his body ready to fight. His eyes locked on the window as if he already saw the threat. Ethan pressed his hand against the alien girl's forehead, feeling the faint warmth of her skin. He had promised her safety. Now it was no longer just her fight. It was his fight too, and so as the night deepened, Ethan sat between fear and courage, holding the hand of a dying alien girl, with Rex guarding the door. Somewhere in the dark forest, the hunters drew closer, but in that moment, one man and his dog had made a silent vow they would not let her last breath be stolen. The night felt longer than usual. The cabin was silent except for the soft crackle of the fire and the faint, uneven breaths of the alien girl. Ethan sat in a chair nearby, his face tired but his eyes sharp. He had promised to protect her, and he would not sleep while danger moved outside. Rex lay near the door, his head low, his ears twitching at every sound. He was restless, ready to act if anything threatened them. Sometimes he lifted his head and gave a low growl, but then went quiet again. Ethan knew his dog well. Rex was not afraid, only alert. The girl stirred, whispering in a voice that was barely audible. Ethan leaned closer. Her glowing eyes opened slightly, filled with confusion and pain. She tried to sit up, but her body was too weak. Ethan placed a hand gently on her shoulder. "Rest, you're safe here," he said softly. Her lips trembled. She tried to speak, words broken, her accent strange but understandable. "Why, help me." Her voice carried doubt, as though she could not believe a stranger would care for her. Ethan hesitated. He looked at her and then at Rex, who wagged his tail once as if answering for him. Finally, Ethan said, "Because you needed me, and because no one deserves to die alone." The girl blinked. Silent for a moment, her eyes softened. She whispered something in her own language, a sound like a gentle song. Then she tried again in English. "Thank you." Ethan nodded. He rose and prepared a small bowl of warm broth from the simple food he had. When he brought it to her, she hesitated, sniffing carefully as if unsure it was safe. Ethan tasted a spoonful himself, and then held it out to her. She watched him, then slowly accepted. Her weak hands trembled as she brought the spoon to her lips. Rex moved closer, watching with gentle eyes. The girl managed a few sips, her breathing easing slightly afterward. She leaned back, exhaustion pulling at her, but there was a small spark of strength in her face now. "Do you have a name?" Ethan asked quietly. She looked at him, confused at first, then seemed to understand. Her lips moved slowly. "Lyra," she whispered. "Lyra," Ethan repeated, letting the name settle in the air. "I'm Ethan, and this is Rex," he pointed. At the dog, Rex gave a small bark, his tail wagging. Lyra's lips curved into the faintest smile. It was the first time Ethan saw warmth in her expression. For a while, the cabin felt strangely calm. Ethan sat with her, asking small questions. Lyra tried to answer in her broken English, telling fragments of her story. She spoke of her people, peaceful wanderers who traveled the stars. They avoided war, avoided conflict, but had enemies who hunted them, enemies she called the Hunters. Her voice trembled as she remembered. She explained how her people had been betrayed, how their ships were destroyed, and how she had barely escaped. Ethan listened in silence, his fists clenched. His heart ached for her. For the loneliness and pain in her voice, Rex moved closer. To Lyra, resting his head on the edge of the couch. Lyra placed her glowing hand gently on his fur. Rex licked her fingers softly. She let out a small laugh, a fragile sound, but real. Ethan felt his chest tighten. In that moment, he knew the bond between them was growing. Outside, the night continued. The forest whispered with wind, but every so often, Ethan thought he heard something else. Mechanical and distant. Still, inside the cabin, a strange peace was forming. Lyra's trust was slowly building, and Ethan felt a responsibility stronger than anything he had carried before. "Why do they want you?" Ethan asked softly. Lyra lowered her head, her voice breaking. "Because I survived. They want no witness, no hope." Her eyes glistened with tears. "If I live, my people live in memory. If I die, they are forgotten." Ethan felt a lump in his throat. He reached out, placing a hand on her shoulder. "Then you'll live," he said firmly. Lyra looked at him, as if testing whether he truly meant it. And for the first time, she nodded. Hours passed slowly. The fire burned low. Ethan dozed lightly in the chair, but never let go of his awareness. Lyra slept more peacefully now, and Rex never moved far from her side. At dawn, soft light broke through the small window, touching the girl's glowing skin. For the first time, she looked less like a dying stranger and more like someone who belonged here. But as morning came, Ethan's unease grew stronger. He stepped outside for a moment. The air crisp and cold. The forest was too quiet. The birds had not returned. The air still carried that strange electric hum. He returned inside quickly, locking the door. Lyra looked at him with tired but trusting eyes. Ethan forced a smile. "It's going to be all right," he said. Even though he knew the hunters were still out there, somewhere in the distance, danger was moving closer. And yet, in that fragile cabin, for one night, they had built something powerful, a shelter not of wood and stone alone, but of trust. Asterisk, asterisk, asterisk. The morning sun spilled gently through the cracks of the wooden cabin. Its light touched the strange symbols on Lyra's torn clothes, making them shimmer faintly. Ethan sat across from her, a cup of black coffee in his hand. His eyes studied her carefully, not just with curiosity, but with a growing sense of responsibility. Rex lay at Lyra's side, his tail thumping slowly against the floor whenever she moved. The bond between the dog and the alien girl had grown overnight. She reached out now and then, brushing her glowing fingers through his fur, and Rex would close his eyes content and calm. Lyra looked stronger than the night before, though her skin still carried a dim glow. She tried to sit up fully, leaning against the couch. Ethan placed a pillow behind her to help. Her eyes, those bright star-filled eyes, met his, and she whispered, "You want to know?" Ethan nodded. His voice was low. "Yes, I do. Who are you, Lyra? And why are they hunting you?" She closed her eyes for a long moment, as if gathering courage. Then with a soft trembling breath, she began, "My people are called Illyrians. We are not warriors, not conquerors. We travel the stars, we learn, we share, we heal worlds. That is our way." Her voice grew steadier, though still marked by sorrow. "Long ago, we lived on a green world with oceans and silver skies, but we gave it up. We left it behind. We believed no world should belong to just one people. We became travelers, carrying our knowledge as our true home." Ethan listened in silence, his coffee sat forgotten in his hands. Every word carried a weight, a history that stretched far beyond anything he had ever imagined. Lyra's gaze drifted to the window where the forest stretched beyond. "But there are those who do not like peace hunters. They profit from fear, from destruction. They see us as prey because we do not fight. They came in the night. They set fire to the skies, my family, my people." Her voice broke, tears filling her eyes. "They are gone." Rex whined softly and pressed his head against her knee. Lyra's hand trembled as she stroked him. Ethan felt a heaviness in his chest. He had seen loss before, but this was different. This was the end of a whole people, not just one family. They wanted to erase us, Lyra whispered, her voice faint. But I survived. I escaped in a small vessel. It broke apart in the sky. I fell here. If they find me, they will finish what they started. She lifted her glowing eyes to Ethan. That is why I begged you not to let them take me. Ethan set his cup aside. He leaned forward, his hands clasped tightly. You're saying you're the last of your kind? Lyra hesitated, then nodded slowly. The silence that followed felt heavier than stone. For a long time, Ethan said nothing. His mind raced. He was just a man in a small cabin with an old dog. And now sitting before him was the last survivor of a star-traveling race. If he failed her, an entire people would vanish forever. Lyra seemed to sense his thoughts. She whispered, I am sorry. I bring danger to you, to your world. I should have died in the forest. It would have been easier. Ethan's eyes hardened. He leaned forward, his voice firm. Don't say that. You're alive for a reason. Maybe your people needed someone to survive. Maybe they needed you, and if I can help, then I will. No matter what comes. Lyra stared at him, stunned by the certainty in his tone. Her lips parted, but no words came. Instead, a single tear slid down her glowing cheek. She reached out, placing her hand on his. Her fingers were warm, the glow pulsing faintly as if responding to his promise. Rex barked once, sharp and loud. The moment was broken. Ethan turned quickly. His dog was at the door, ears pricked, growling low. The forest outside was too quiet again. That same electric hum lingered faintly in the air. Lyra's face grew pale. They are near, she whispered, fear cutting into her voice. Ethan moved to the window, scanning the trees. He saw nothing, but he trusted Rex. If the dog sensed danger, it was real. He stepped back, his jaw tight. Then we don't have much time. He looked at Lyra. If the hunters come, we'll be ready. I'm not letting them take you. Lyra shook her head weakly. You cannot fight them. They are many. They have weapons. You are only human. Ethan gave a grim smile. Maybe, but sometimes being human is enough. He glanced at Rex, who growled again, his eyes sharp and ready. And I'm not alone. Lyra looked at the man and his dog, her fear slowly melting into something else. Hope, fragile but alive. For the first time since she had fallen from the sky, she felt she was not just running, not just surviving. She was being protected outside. The forest whispered with unseen movements. The hunters were searching, drawing closer. But inside the cabin, among firelight and shadows, a promise had been made. Ethan, Rex, and Lyra were no longer strangers. They were something stronger, something unbreakable. And it was in that fragile shelter, built not from walls but from trust, that the true fight for survival would begin. *****. The day moved slowly, filled with a heavy silence. Ethan tried to act calm, but every sound outside kept him on edge. The forest was alive, yet strangely quiet, as if even the animals knew something dangerous was coming. Rex paced near the door, ears sharp, tail stiff, his growl low and steady. Lyra sat on the couch, her glowing eyes watching Ethan carefully. She still looked weak, but her strength had grown a little. Her voice was soft. They will find me. They never stop. Hunters follow until the end. Ethan set down the old rifle he had cleaned that morning. His hands moved with precision, loading the weapon, checking every piece. He looked at Lyra, his jaw tight. Then we'll make sure they don't get you. Lyra's eyes filled with fear. You cannot fight them, Ethan. They are stronger, faster. They carry weapons beyond your world. She shook her head. If they come, you must run. Take your dog and leave me. I will only bring death to you. But Ethan shook his head firmly. No, Lyra, you don't understand. You're not alone anymore. If they want you, they'll have to go through me first. Rex barked once, as if agreeing with his master's words. His eyes glowed with the same fierce loyalty. The hours dragged until the sun began to sink. Orange light spilled across the cabin floor, and the shadows grew long. That was when Ethan heard it. A faint hum in the distance. Steady, growing louder. His heart pounded. He rushed to the window, scanning the treetops through the gaps in the forest. He saw them, strange lights cutting across the sky, ships shaped like blades, their engines humming with power. They moved low, searching, hunting. Lyra gasped, pulling the blanket tighter around her shoulders. "They are here," she whispered. Her body trembled. Ethan turned away from the window, his eyes sharp. "Then we're ready." He moved quickly, setting traps outside the cabin door. Simple devices made from wire, rope, and sharpened stakes. They would not stop the hunters for long, but they would slow them. He poured oil around certain spots, ready to light fire if needed. Rex followed, watching, waiting for his masters. Commands. As night fell, the sound grew closer. The humming engines now mixed with the crunch of heavy footsteps. The hunters were moving through the forest, searching with sharp precision. The glow of their torches cut through the trees, shadows twisting and stretching. Ethan loaded his rifle. The click of the metal loud in the small cabin. Lyra sat upright, now her glowing eyes wide. "Please, Ethan, you do not understand their cruelty. They will not stop. They will kill you, and they will kill Rex." Ethan turned to her, his voice calm but firm. "Listen to me, Lyra. I've lost before, I know what it means to fight against the odds, but I won't let them touch you. I promised you last night, and I keep my promises." Rex growled deep in his chest, his body stiff like a coiled spring. The sound of footsteps grew louder, closer. Ethan could almost hear the metallic scrape of their weapons. His hand tightened on the rifle, his breathing slowed, his eyes locked on the door. Then it happened. A loud crash echoed from the forest edge. One of Ethan's traps had been sprung. A cry followed, sharp and alien. The hunters had reached the edge of his land. Lyra clutched the edge of the couch, her eyes glowing brighter with fear. Ethan whispered to her, "Stay low. Don't move. Whatever happens, I'll keep them away from you." She nodded weakly, though her hands trembled. The first shadow moved outside the window, tall, armored, its body covered in dark metal plates that reflected the moonlight. Its eyes glowed red, scanning, hunting. Ethan's finger brushed the trigger of his rifle, waiting. Rex barked suddenly, sharp and furious. His body slammed against the door, as if warning the intruder. The hunter outside froze for a moment, then moved, heavy footsteps circling the cabin. Ethan steadied his aim, his chest tightened with adrenaline. The moment stretched, then he fired. The rifle's roar split the night. The hunter staggered back, sparks flashing as the bullet hit its armor. It did not fall, but it slowed. The forest exploded with sound. More hunters moved forward, their strange voices echoing through the trees. Ethan reloaded fast. Rex barked and growled, his body ready to strike. Lyra cried out softly, "Ethan, more, many more." She pressed her hands together, her skin glowing brighter, strange patterns forming across her arms, as though her body was preparing some kind of hidden strength. Ethan glanced at her but said nothing, his focus fixed on the door. Another shadow lunged, breaking through the cabin wall. Wood splintered. Ethan fired again, this time hitting the creature square in the chest. The alien roared, staggering backward. Rex leapt at it with fury, his teeth sinking into its armor joint. The hunter thrashed, but the dog held on. Ethan shouted, his voice raw, "Rex, down." The dog leapt back just as Ethan fired once more. This time the hunter fell, its red eyes fading. Silence followed for only a heartbeat. Then the forest erupted with the sound of many more footsteps. The hunters were coming in numbers. Ethan's face was pale, but his eyes burned with determination. He whispered under his breath, "If this is it, then so be it." Lyra looked at him, tears glimmering in her glowing eyes. "Why do this for me?" she asked, her voice breaking. Ethan didn't look back. He aimed his rifle toward the door again. "Because you're not worthless. Because someone has to stand. And because no one else will," Rex barked, the sound fierce and unafraid. The hunters closed in, shadows moving through the trees. The battle for survival had truly begun. Asterisk, asterisk, asterisk. The cabin shook as another crash echoed outside. The hunters were closing in, their heavy boots pounding against the earth. Their red eyes burned in the night like sparks of fire. Ethan stood firm by the door, his rifle in his hands, his body tense but steady. Rex growled fiercely at his side, teeth bared, ready for whatever came next. Lyra clutched the edge of the couch, her glowing hands trembling. She whispered Ethan's name, her voice shaking. "You cannot win against them, please. You must run." But Ethan didn't move. His jaw tightened. "If I run, they'll take you, and if they take you, everything ends. I won't let that happen." The first hunter broke through the trees, tall and armored, carrying a weapon that pulsed with red light. Ethan didn't wait. He aimed and fired. The bullet hit the creature's chest, sparks flew, and the hunter staggered but didn't fall. It roared, a deep metallic sound that shook the ground. Rex launched forward without fear, leaping high and biting at the exposed joint of the alien's armor. The hunter swung wildly, trying to throw the dog off, but Rex was relentless. Ethan reloaded quickly and fired again. This time the bullet pierced deeper. The alien fell back into the dirt, its red glow fading into nothing. But there was no time to celebrate. More shadows moved from the forest, red lights glowing through the mist. Ethan's breath came fast, sweat dripping down his brow. He whispered to Rex, "Stay close, boy. We're not done yet." The hunters surrounded the cabin, their weapons humming with deadly energy. One raised a strange device, and a beam of light shot forward, striking the wooden wall. Flames erupted instantly. The cabin shook with heat. Smoke began to fill the air. Lyra gasped, her glowing skin flickering as if responding to the danger. She tried to rise, but her body was too weak. She cried out, "Ethan, they will burn you alive." Ethan ignored the pain in his chest as he shouted back, "Not if I stop them first." He kicked the door open and fired into the night. The forest lit up with muzzle flashes. The hunters roared back, their strange voices echoing through the trees. Red beams cut through the darkness, searing the air around him. Rex darted forward, moving faster than the eye could follow, leaping and snapping at anything that came too close. Two hunters charged, their weapons raised. Ethan fired at one, the bullet striking its head. Sparks burst, and the alien collapsed. The second swung a blade-like weapon. Rex slammed into its legs, tripping it. Ethan fired again, and the hunter fell silent. But still they kept coming, a dozen shadows now, surrounding from every side. Ethan's chest heaved. His rifle was nearly empty. He knew he couldn't fight them forever. Yet he stood taller, his eyes burning with the fire of defiance. Lyra's voice rang out, desperate, "Stop, they will kill you. Please let me go. They want me, not you." Ethan turned his head just enough to meet her eyes. His voice was raw. "Lyra, listen to me. You're alive because someone has to remember. Someone has to carry your people's story. If you die, they win, and I won't let them win." Rex barked, loud and sharp. His fur bristled, his body shining. In the firelight like a beast of legend, he charged into the dark again, his growl carrying across the night like thunder. Ethan followed, his rifle cracking with each shot. The hunters tried to press forward, but the traps Ethan had set slowed them. One tripped on a wire, spikes tearing into its armor. Another slipped on the oil-soaked ground as Ethan lit it ablaze. With a torch, flames roared high, burning across the trees, casting wild shadows over the battlefield through the smoke and fire. Ethan and Rex stood like guardians, one man and one dog against an army. Ethan's muscles ached, his rifle grew hot in his hands, but he did not falter. Rex's body bled from small cuts, but his eyes never lost their fire. The hunters hesitated. Their prey was supposed to be weak, but here they found a wall of resistance. A human and his loyal dog fighting with a courage they could not understand. One hunter raised its weapon to strike Ethan, but Rex leapt higher than ever before, knocking the weapon aside. Ethan fired his last round into its chest. The alien collapsed in the dirt. Silence followed for a moment. broken only by the crackle of flames. Then, slowly, the remaining hunters pulled back. Their red eyes blinked in the darkness. They did not retreat fully, but they stopped pressing forward. Ethan stood in the burning light, smoke stinging his lungs. His empty rifle hung at his side. Rex limped to his master's feet, growling at the shadows. Lyra stared in awe, her glowing eyes wide. She whispered, "You fought them. You made them fear." Ethan breathed heavily, his chest rising and falling. He looked at her and gave a tired smile. "No, Lyra, not fear." They saw something they didn't expect. His eyes narrowed as he looked back at the forest. They saw that humans don't break. The night held its breath. The hunters lingered in the shadows, waiting, watching. But for now, Ethan, Rex, and Lyra still stood. The stand of one man and his dog had shaken the enemy, and the battle was far from over. Asterisk, asterisk, asterisk. The forest was quiet again. Smoke drifted through the trees, glowing faintly in the moonlight. Ethan stood at the doorway of his cabin, his rifle empty, his breath heavy. Rex limped to his side, blood streaking his fur, but his tail still raised. The hunters had pulled back, their red eyes fading into the distance. For now the night belonged to the man, his dog, and the alien girl. Ethan's body ached. His arms shook from exhaustion, but he forced himself to stay alert. He knew they might come again, but when he turned back toward Lyra, something inside him shifted. She sat on the couch, her glowing skin brighter now, her eyes filled not with fear, but with something else, wonder. She whispered softly, her voice trembling, "You stood against them, you and your dog. You did not let me die." Ethan gave a tired smile, running a hand through his messy hair. "I told you, I keep my promises." Rex barked once, as if agreeing, and then lay down at Lyra's feet, guarding her even as his body cried for rest. Tears welled in Lyra's glowing eyes. She leaned forward, placing a delicate hand on Ethan's. The warmth of her touch pulsed through him. Not just heat, but something deeper. A strange energy that seemed alive. "Among my people, there is a bond we give to those who save us," she said, her voice barely more than a whisper. "It is rare, sacred. It means we are forever connected." Ethan blinked, unsure of what she meant. Before he could speak, Lyra pressed her glowing palm against his chest. Just over his heart, the light spread across her hand, moving into his skin. For a moment, Ethan felt his heart race, not from fear, but from a strange connection that filled him with warmth, visions of stars, worlds, and memories not his own, flashing before his eyes. When it ended, Lyra's hand dropped weakly, but her eyes shone with peace. "Now you carry me, Ethan. No matter where I go, part of me will live with you. You have given me more than life. You gave me hope again." Ethan stared at her, words lost on his tongue. He was a man who had lived simply, far away from the noise of the world. Now an alien child had bound her gratitude to him forever. He had no idea what it truly meant, but he felt the weight of it, heavy and powerful. Rex lifted his head, whining softly. Lyra reached down and stroked his fur. "And you, brave guardian, I name you protector of Illyria, even if I am the last. My people will know your name." Rex wagged his tail weakly, and Ethan chuckled. "Looks like you just got promoted, buddy," for the first time since she had fallen from the sky. Lyra laughed. It was soft, fragile, but filled with life. That sound alone was worth every risk, every fight. Ethan leaned back against the wall, his rifle at his side, watching the firelight flicker across her glowing skin. The night slowly gave way to dawn. Pale light stretched across the horizon, painting the forest in silver and gold. Ethan stepped outside, the cool air brushing his face. He looked at the trees, scarred from battle, and the smoke still curling from burnt wood. The hunters would be back, of that he had no doubt. But something inside him had changed. He was no longer just a man in a lonely cabin. He had become a protector. Lyra came to the doorway, leaning weakly against the frame, her eyes lifted to the rising sun. She whispered, "On my world, we believed dawn was a promise. No matter how dark the night, The light always returns. Ethan looked at her, and for a moment, he saw not weakness, but strength. The strength of a survivor. She turned to him, her voice firm though quiet. "Ethan, you did not just save me. You saved what remains of my people. You saved the memory of Illyria. For that, I will never forget you, never." She placed her hand over her heart, bowing her head in a gesture of deep respect. Ethan shifted uncomfortably, unused to such words. "I only did what anyone should have done." But Lyra shook her head. "No, not anyone, only you. Only a human with a heart strong enough to stand when others would run." Rex barked softly, breaking the heavy moment. Ethan laughed quietly and scratched his dog behind the ears. "Guess. It wasn't just me. He did half the work." Lyra smiled, her glowing eyes gentle. "Then both of you carry my gratitude." The three of them stood together as the sun rose higher. The forest slowly came back to life, birds returning, the wind carrying away the smoke of battle. It almost felt normal, almost peaceful. But beneath it all, Ethan knew the fight wasn't over. The hunters would return, maybe stronger, maybe angrier, yet for now they had survived. Lyra stepped closer, her small hand resting on Ethan's arm. "Where I go next, I do not know, but if I live, it is because of you." She looked at Rex and added softly, "And because of you too, brave one." Ethan took a deep breath, looking out across the horizon. He had once thought his life would be simple, just a man and his dog in the quiet woods. But fate had chosen differently, and he did not regret it. He looked at Lyra, then at Rex, and said quietly, "Then we'll face whatever comes, together." The sun rose higher, spilling golden light across them. One human, one loyal dog, and one alien girl bound by gratitude. They were no longer strangers brought together by chance. They were a family born in fire, in trust, and in the promise of hope. And though the hunters still lingered in the shadows, waiting for another chance, Lyra's gratitude shone brighter than fear. Her unbelievable gift had turned a lonely man and his dog into something greater, guardians of her future. ****.